What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us today on Cinema Recap. So, we're gonna jump right into this thriller called Saint Maud, or Maud. I'm not sure how you pronounce that in French. Spoilers ahead. We meet Maud, a young woman living in her tiny apartment. She's a pious woman who prays before she eats like most religious people. She asks him for forgiveness when she questions what his plan is for her. She has a feeling that she's meant for more in life. Maud is not only religious, but she's also a nurse. One who's been struggling with stomach issues and anxiety. She's taken on a new job at a large mansion, caring for a woman. Her name is Amanda Cole, and she's dying from stage 4 lymphoma. She's quite wealthy, and according to the other nurse, not always the most cordial person to work with. Maud will be staying there for a while, and has her own bedroom, decorating it with her cross for prayer. She appears to be an attentive caregiver, and caters to Amanda's needs. Before she was sick, she was a dancer and a choreographer who made a name for herself. As the days go on, Maud and Miss Cole go through their daily routine. She makes comments about how Maud is prettier than the last and asks about the cross necklace she wears. Maud tells her that her saint is Mary Magdalene. Later that evening, Mrs. Cole pretties herself up with some makeup and a wig, clearly expecting company. As Maud is leaving to go out, she runs into a man who seems quite eager for her to leave. She's unsure, but decides to head off for dinner anyway. Maud observes the people around her, seeing a homeless man who's asking for change. She gives him some and leaves him with a blessing. She's unsure about this town, wondering to herself about her new patient, Mrs. Cole. Maud doesn't understand why she would be drawn to a place like this one. She doesn't even find it desirable, and she's not a prestigious dancer. Her time out on the town was cut short when Richard, the man she saw as she was leaving, calls to say that she needs to come back to take care of Amanda, who had a little too much to drink. Amanda seems annoyed with Richard and wants him to leave, but they seem to make up a little as he kissed her on the forehead. Both he and Maud realize that her drunkenness and anger is due to her impending and nearing death. Maud cleans up and gets Amanda into bed, but before she can head to her room, the woman asks her to stay with her because she doesn't want to be alone. The two have a moving conversation about Maud and her recent conversion to religion and her faith in God. She tells Amanda that she was working at a hospital when she realized she needed a change, and that's when she felt God talking to her. Her description of God prompts Amanda to divulge her concerns with death. She knows that she's dying and won't last much longer, but is afraid of what comes after. What Maud says is that God sees her and that there's more in the afterlife for her. Amanda's pretty pleased by that, holding Maud's hand, calling her her little savior. This statement fuels Maud in a way that makes her feel strange, like that same warm sensation she experiences when she's in the presence of God.
You'll be all right?
Oh, don't be.
She even kneels on popcorn kernels, wanting to find any way that she can to please God, hoping for any kind of answer from him. She thanks God, saying that she knew that he always had something planned for her. Maud believes this to be a sign from above, that she must do more than palliative care for Mrs. Cole, showing her dedication to God by kneeling on those kernels, hoping that she'll hear his voice again. Maud feels God is telling her to save Amanda's soul, so she gets to work on going through her vain belongings and dumping all the liquor down the drain. Now, Maud continues to have these episodes where she thinks that God is with her again. She acts as if she can feel him touching her, almost in a strange or evil way. It leaves you wondering if she's really in the presence of God or maybe something else. Maud's upset when a young woman named Carol comes to visit with Amanda late at night. She doesn't like it, but doesn't stop Carol. When she goes to the bathroom afterwards, she has a nosebleed. As insignificant as it was, it clearly means something. She grows even more suspicious of what Amanda's doing when she sees Carol the next morning counting a bunch of money. This makes Maud realize how much she wants to help her even more. Maud is pleased when Amanda calls her upstairs for company while they eat. Amanda's eager to join her in prayer, enjoying the idea of getting closer to God like they've discussed the day prior. Maud can feel his presence again, and Amanda notices, saying that she can sense him as well. The moment is bonding for the two of them, and it seems like it helps them grow closer. Amanda's pleased by Maud's company and honesty, and even gifts her with a book of William Blake's religious illustrations and stories. Carol's in the house again. She's making Maud quite uncomfortable for several reasons: her obvious gay relationship with Amanda, and her flippant nature towards Maud and her patient's delicate nature. You see, that night, Maud watched the two women through the crack in the door, but chose not to interrupt. The next morning, she waited for Carol to leave and asked to talk to her. Maud wasn't shy about telling Carol that Amanda needs peace, and wasting her time with a girl that doesn't care about her isn't gonna do her any good in her final dying days. Well, Carol's insulted, but says that she'll do what Maud asks. Now Maud feels better knowing that Amanda's being left alone.
I think it went well.
She smiles to herself as she takes her evening walk through the town thinking. A woman named Joy stops her, but she calls Maud Katie instead. Maud tried to ignore her, but this person from her past was insistent on saying hello. It was a cordial encounter. Joy's a nurse at the hospital that Maud worked at before she switched to her current employer. Joy seems surprised to hear that Katie, aka Maud, was still working as a nurse. She even asks if the agency she's at now knows about what happened. Maud obviously didn't want to get into that, but nodded her head. When she said that she had to leave, Joy gave Maud her number and told her to call her if she ever wanted to talk or get a drink sometime. Maud's peace and quiet with Amanda was short-lived as someone called. Maud's clearly worrying that it's Carol, telling her that she confronted her the other day. Amanda seems clearly upset afterwards and wants to go to bed early, confirming Maud's suspicions. In her frustration with herself and Amanda, Maud burns herself on the stove. Amanda decides to have a birthday party, inviting a large group of friends to her house, including Carol. Now Maud's quite uncomfortable with this entire event, but she knows that she can't ruin Amanda's party. The discomfort in the situation got even worse when Amanda decided to talk about Maud to her guests, even teasing about her confronting Carol and wanting to save her soul. Amanda still calls Maud her savior, but it's not without a hint of sarcasm. She then asks Maud if she thinks that she's indecent, to which Maud simply responds that no, she's lost instead. Amanda's company continues to tease Maud, even putting a napkin on her head like she's a nun. Amanda calls her over and tells her that she shouldn't take what she says seriously, but earns herself a slap by Maud when she tries to make a snide comment about God. Maud was clearly fired, and her boss said that she's lucky Amanda's not pressing charges. She goes back to her tiny apartment feeling defeated and punished. Maud feels a sense of darkness and pain as she questions God's intentions, saying that she was ready and open when she put herself out there for her, and all she got was rejection. Now she's unemployed and unhirable in her field. As Maud continues to question things, she receives an answer as her wrapped-up cross throws itself off of her dresser. She believes it's another message from God, saying that he's still listening. She's still feeling unsure about herself and God's plan, so she heads out to the bar. She doesn't get the satisfying result she's looking for either, so she calls Joy and asks if she would like to get a drink. Before she could meet up with her old co-worker, she starts seeing things. The beer in the glass in front of her starts swirling, causing her to panic and bump into a man named Christian. In another desperate attempt to feel better, she goes home with him, and while she's trying to forget about her predicament, she starts to have a vision from a past incident. She's doing CPR on an old woman, and her ribs break. The man underneath her is bleeding from the mouth, but it's just a hallucination. Afterwards, she's feeling shame and remorse, leaving quickly after her fling asks her if she's the nurse that used to date his friend Tommy. That's a nice name. She staggers home, consumed with regret. She's begging God not to let her fall apart again, saying that she thought she did everything that he wanted her to do. Her hands start to shake, and she vomits. Something strange happens to her as she's writhing on the ground and foaming at the mouth. She begins levitating in the air, and to Maud, this is another answer from God. Now that she's heard from him again, in a big way especially, she turns her attention back to God, and she continues to show him her love with more self-punishment by putting thumbtacks in her shoes. What? And Maud hasn't forgotten about Amanda or her mission to save her soul. She has a plan and reflects on her conversations with the beautiful dancer as she cuts out the illustrations from the book that Amanda gifted to her. She decides to meet Amanda's current private nurse and has a conversation with the woman while she's eating her lunch by the seaside. Her name is Esther, and she said that she's enjoying her job, but seeing her patients die is pretty difficult. She mentions that she didn't think she would be with her current patient for very long. This angers Maud, and she storms off. That night, she can't sleep, watching a cockroach scuttle down her cabinets under her dresser where she's keeping her religious mementos. There appears to be a pulse of energy that catches her eye. When Maud approaches, she hears a male's voice speaking a foreign language, yet she understands him. We presume that it's God talking to her. He says that he knows that Maud has always felt like the world was just a game and that there was more than what they saw, that he was proud of her and how far she had come, and that if she took one last test, that she would be with him forever.
You sure you're okay then?
An illustration falls, one of Williams Blake's drawings of Christ. Maud asks how she'll know what to do, and he tells her that she's always known. This finally brings Maud the peace that she needs to sleep. The next day, Maud prepares with her rosary and holy water. There's bottles of hydrogen peroxide and acetone, but we're not sure exactly what she's planning to do at the moment. She hears a knock at her door. It's her old friend, Joy. She said she wanted to talk and it would be quick. Joy makes nice comments about her interesting decorations and says that she's been feeling badly about the last time they saw each other. She thinks that Maud, or Katie as she knew her, was a great nurse and tried her hardest. Maud's not really paying attention to any of that and stares out the window as the clouds start swirling above, like the beers at the bar. She's feeling this is another good sign, and she kisses Joy, telling her that she was once lost, but she's had a transformation, and now she's fine. Maud takes a sheet, stitches it up, looking like a robe of some sort. She's walking through the night, heading towards Amanda's big house on the hill. She says a prayer, waiting for Esther, the new nurse, to leave for the evening. She goes inside and heads for Amanda's room. When Maud touches her face gently, Amanda doesn't seem afraid and even apologizes for treating her poorly the last time they saw each other. Maud tells her that God sent her to her and that she's not alone. When she tries to anoint her with holy water, Amanda resists and tells her to snap out of it, that it was just the two of them in the room. When Maud says that Amanda felt the presence of God with her, she laughs, saying that it wasn't real and that she had faked it. As Maud's composure crumbles, Amanda starts laughing at her. Suddenly, her face is contorting something evil with a sinister voice change, taunting Maud as it appears that Amanda was possessed by the devil. Maud's thrown across the room, smashing into Amanda's dresser. The possessed woman taunts her some more, when our pious Maud finally snaps, stabbing Amanda in the chest and neck with a pair of scissors until she's dead, covered in blood and in a daze. She leaves the house. Having completed God's work, she heads back to her flat and washes herself off. The next morning, she sees that she has a glowing pair of wings growing out of her back. She takes a walk to the pier, stopping at the beach. The clouds above her are swirling like the beers. Maybe another sign from God. She drops the bag she's carrying, douses herself in clear flammable liquid. She sees that people around her are watching, and then she just sets the fire. The people in front of her drop to their knees as she's consumed by a beautiful light. But is it really a godly one? And that wraps up our thriller for Saint Maud, a 2019 flick starring Morpheed Clark and Jennifer L. Saint Maud was produced by Escape Plan Productions, Film 4, and BFI Film Fund. Alright guys, what do you think? Was Maud crazy? Or was Amanda really possessed? Leave those answers down below with the hashtag Cinema Recap. Go ahead and drop a like for us if you liked it, obviously. And hey, if you're not already with us, what are you doing? Subscribe and get ready for some more content. As always, till next time.